Asak of blind athletes has left the meeting. Zoom. This meeting is being live streamed. By staying in this meeting, you consent to being live streamed. Meeting is being recorded by host participant. This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everybody. My name is Molly Quinn, the CEO of the United States Association of Blind Athletes, and very excited to be here this evening for our National Blind Sports Week presented by Healthy Vision Association. And I get the honor and the pleasure of being the moderator tonight for our Paralympic journey. And we've got two fabulous Paralympians that are joining us tonight. We've got Lisa Czechowski and Christella Blue coming to us tonight across the country. And we're going to get a chance to learn a lot more about who they are, how they've really enjoyed being Paralympians, and some of the challenges of what it takes to be an athlete at this level, and also to hear a little bit more of what they do off the court, which is always great to hear what our athletes are doing out there. I want to share that Lisa Czechowski is a 6-time Paralympian, a 5-time Paralympic medalist, and a goalball sport ambassador. Christella Garcia, I'm so sorry, got your last name correct. Sorry about there in the audience. She's a 2-time judo Paralympian and Paralympic bronze medalist. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Great. Well, let's start with Christella. Christella, where are you joining us from tonight?
I am from Sacramento, California.
Great, great. How's your weather out there?
So it's a lot better than it was a couple of weeks ago. We're not hitting those 115s, so I'm happy.
Good, good. And Lisa, I know you're joining us from Fort Wayne, Indiana, where you're at Turnstone, one of the Olympic and Paralympic training sites, one of 9 sites across the country. Tell us a little bit about being at Turnstone, both as an athlete and as an employee.
Absolutely. We've also kind of nicknamed this Fort Wayne, Indiana as kind of Goalball Town, USA, since, Turnstone is our training site. It is very awesome to have such a supportive training site like Turnstone, having a dedicated goalball court. As you know, the Goalball Center of Excellence has been vital in our success of our men's and women's program. So many thanks to U.S. Association of Blind Athletes and Turnstone for making the training opportunities available to us. So as an athlete, it's been phenomenal. And then I've had the privilege of also being an employee of Turnstone, working in the accounting department. And that has been a really awesome experience. I learned a whole new field of work, and, working with a very supportive and excited staff, especially when the big tournaments are coming around, but very supportive of a goalball program and everything that we do as USA Goalball. So it's great.
Fantastic, fantastic. Christella, tell us a little bit about what daily life looks like for you in Sacramento these days.
Well, so my past couple of years have been pretty exciting. I recently bought a house with my life partner, Joe Hamilton. So that's scary and fun and exciting all at the same time. And I recently got a new guide dog. Her name is Frolic. And I definitely have to say, this is the most appropriately named animal on the planet. She is a phenomenal guide, but she definitely loves to play. And if I ever need some cardio, I can just go out with her in the backyard, and I don't think there's any other training that will match that. So that's been fun. And so I'm doing that. I'm also a massage therapist. I work for Massage Envy, plus I have my own personal business, and I will be launching my own essential oil product business called Sensational, hopefully by November 21st, which is my birthday.
Oh, how exciting. Well, that's great. Very entrepreneurial.
Try to keep myself busy.
Super, super. So Christella, tell us a little bit about your journey to the Paralympics, and share with us when that started and how old you were and what made you decide to go into the sport of judo?
So I think that judo is one of the coolest sports on the planet, and I am definitely biased about it. It's really fun. There's so many lessons that you learn on and off the mat and the tatami, if you will. And so I originally started when I was about 9 years old. My mom told me that I couldn't wrestle with the boys anymore. So I found a sport where I could be on the mat and, wrestle / do standing work with everybody. And it just it was amazing to me. I didn't feel, when I'm on the mat, I'm just more than a blind person. I'm an athlete. I feel powerful. I feel strong and confident. And so it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And I did track, cheerleading. I played a little bit of goalball, but I was always just drawn back to judo and started training for the games with a couple of my friends, and had an injury which took me out of going to Beijing. And then I went to London and fortunately fell short. And then I went to Rio and it was amazing. And that's where I was able to earn my medal. And unfortunately I had to take some time off. I had another service animal. Her name was Christella and she passed away. So that happened right before the Tokyo Games, but I am getting back into training. And like I said, judo is an addictive sport. It's more than a sport, it's a community, it's a lifestyle. And I'm very happy to be a part of it.
That's great. That's great. So back into training,
Yes.
Meaning that Paris 2024 is on your calendar.
So like I said, I've kind of had a lot on my plate recently. Sometimes life takes over and I, pretty much have had everything thrown at me. And the thing that I miss is like when I'm not doing judo, I feel my energy levels drop, just a lot of different things. So I was like, I think that I owe this sport one more opportunity. They've recently made some rule changes, which I'm pretty excited about. And I think I owe myself and, the sport, I need to give it a shot. So I am going to be going to the Pan American Championships for judo in December. So that is kind of something that recently happened and I am super excited about it.
Great. Great. For folks that don't know a lot about the sport, could you just give us a high level, overview of judo for blind and visually impaired athletes?
Sure. So judo is a Japanese sport and and I think it's ironically called the gentle way, which is kind of funny because the way that you can win a match is by throwing somebody flat on their back or by submissions, which include arm bars, holds, or chokes. So kind of funny that they call it the gentle way, but it really is pretty fun. And so, you just have to really develop a strategy for blind / VI judo. There's just a few modifications. I'm considered a J1. I really don't have any functional vision. And so if I step out of the boundaries, I'm not going to be penalized for that. And I think there are a few new rule changes that I'm not quite aware of, but one of the things is that we start with a grip. Both you and your opponent wear gis, which is a judo uniform, and it has a jacket. So you start by holding your partner's lapel under the collar line and their sleeve under their elbow. And so everybody at the start has that same advantage. You know where your partner is. In the sport of judo, you want to use your partner's momentum against them. So when you have your hands on them, you kind of know where their body is and can kind of feel what their head is doing, because where the head's going to go, the body's going to go. So there's just a lot of strategy, and I think it's really fun. It's, when you're out there, it's all about you and what you've learned. And, as much as your coaches want, as much as your teammates or family want it, you have to be the one to perform. And so it's a lot of pressure, but also it's really exhilarating to be on the mat and just be able to compete.
It sounds like there's some strategy involved in there too.
Absolutely.
Great, great. Lisa, why don't you tell us a little bit? So what's really neat about having, you two here tonight is that one of you is an individual competitor, and then the other is a team sport competitor. So Lisa, let's hear a little bit more about the team sport of goalball.
Absolutely. Well, first I want to congratulate Christella on all the exciting things happening in your life right now. That's awesome. Everything happening. Congratulations on your new guide dog as well. I did know your previous one, so I'm sorry to hear about that, but congrats on Frolic, I believe you said.
Yep, she's frolic.
Sounds like she's got a lot of energy and but is a good guide. So congratulations, that's exciting.
Thank you.
Well, I actually am similar to Christella. I did start in an individual sport. I was a track and field athlete, so I was a thrower, and that led me into learning more about goalball eventually. But similar to Christella, also goalball is I find it very addictive as well, and that has driven me to my journey, the very lengthy journey that it has been. But it's definitely goalball as a team sport has taught me so many life lessons. And my journey, I mean, it really began in 1996, and I didn't know much about goalball then, but I introduced to the sport in 1995. It was an alternate for Atlanta in 96, which was a good thing, honestly, because I was 16 and did not have a lot of life experience. So I probably was not ready to experience goalball at its top Paralympic level, honestly. So that was a push though. I was around a lot of veteran athletes, and again, similar to what Christella mentioned about judo, goalball is a community as well. I think a lot of the blind sports in general, like we're all community, we know each other, we try to support each other as much as possible. And I was definitely drawn to that community. And that community of blind athletes, specifically starting with goalball, it helped me grow to be the person I am today. Many mentors that have played the sport, some have retired, some are still around, really helped me to become the person I am today, and then also the athlete I am today. So I don't want to get too into my journey in the way of it's long, as we know. So my first games was in Sydney, Australia in 2000, and it was the only games I was able to do both track and field and goalball, and that came with its challenges as well. Not many Paralympians had done that particular endeavor before, and it was just hard also because you're being pulled in two different directions and balancing various practices and such. And that was my first game, so I was honored to be there, but I was also probably really overwhelmed. And then proceeded to become a one sport athlete. I was advised that it was the best, I would say, athletic professional move is to focus on one sport. So I did choose goalball. I had graduated college and kind of finished up a lot of that track and field. And so I was able to focus on goalball and the opportunities that came my way with that, and went to Athens in 2004, Beijing in 2008, London in 2012, which is where Christella was too, and Rio in 2016, which again, Christella was there. And then, 2020/2021, Tokyo, our belated Paralympics as well. So a long journey.
Lisa, what was it like to make that decision between track and field and goalball? Were there one or two things that you just knew that this was the sport, this was the community?
It was hard in some respects, and it was very easy in some respects because of I had competed in track and field in college. So once I graduated college, I left the atmosphere of having track and field every day, or field every day. I'm not a runner. Most people know that. But I did leave that atmosphere of having the consistent support in the field events. And I started to move on to just, professional life, starting to find a job. And I had moved back to New Jersey, and that's where my home club is in New Jersey. So I started to get kind of immersed back into the New Jersey program and goalball. And so it was easy because it was easy to leave track and field because of college, but it was hard because that was my first love. That was my first passion, my first honestly athletic activity that I felt confident in, that I was able to feel like there were no barriers to my success.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot. I knew that you were a two-sport athlete for a little bit, but didn't really, realize how intense, doing both sports at your first games. That's a lot of pressure.
It was. It was a good experience. I mean, I learned a lot about myself, and I had my struggles at times, but again, I had a really supportive goalball team. And the goalball coaches and the goalball team that was there was so supportive of myself. And one, actually, Asia Miller, was also doing the same thing I did. And so we were fortunate and lucky to have such a great support system, because it was a challenge. It was all new, and we were both successful in track, but we also we were not successful in goalball. So we also had to experience the highs and lows of medaling in one discipline, in one sport. We both medaled in track and field, but we did not medal in goalball. And that was really hard too, because you celebrated something, but then you felt the loss of something as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then you knew what it was like though to medal. So you wanted to continue and look at your career today from that standpoint. Congratulations. That's extremely impressive.
Thank you.
We've got, as we share this, across the country, I think there are obviously, Paralympians listening today. And then there's also young youth athletes across the country that'll get a chance to listen over either tonight or over the next couple of weeks as, we celebrate National Blind Sports Week. Christella, what would be one or two things that you would provide as advice to those young youth participants who one day want to, be an elite athlete and aspire to be a Paralympian?
I definitely would tell young athletes or those aspiring to be in any sport to really just go out there and try it. Don't listen to there's going to be so many people who tell you the reasons why you shouldn't do it, how it's dangerous for a blind person, how you could get hurt and all of those things. But the confidence, the independence, just all the things that you can learn from becoming a Paralympic athlete and being able to travel all over the world because of your sport is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. And what would be, as you're in, the athlete village at one of the games, walk us through that experience. Walk us through a day of what it's like being in the athlete village, surrounded by, just so many athletes and so many different disciplines too.
Honestly, it's a little surrealistic because everybody is there and so laser focused on what they need to do. So I kind of had two different experiences. When I competed in London, I competed under the 70 kilograms. So the maximum weight for that is 154 pounds. And so when I did that, I really never had to worry about my weight. I walked around pretty light for even that division. So I never had to really worry about it and didn't really have to stress. But a lot of my teammates were cutting weight, and sometimes people aren't so happy with their cutting weight. I've been on that part of it too. But in Rio, I actually had to fight up a weight division. I competed in the open division, which is 70 kilos and up. So my goal was I had to make weight. And it sounds like, well, all you do is just go and eat McDonald's and stuff. But it's hard because the workouts are so intense, and you're, like if our teammates are working out, I'm still working out, even though it's an individual sport, we're all a team. And so I could not keep weight on me. So it was really a challenge. I think I did make weight in Rio, because obviously you have to do that. But I think I made it by like I was 54.1 kilos or something silly like that. So it was a little challenging because I was focused on having to eat so much, but it was kind of fun because I got to socialize a lot. And just you meet so many cool people, so many different disabilities, so many just unique personalities. I can remember after I medaled and just sitting outside for a while and just listening to everybody go by and feeling like you want so much to be there, you dream about it, you visualize it, and then you're actually there, and it just seems surrealistic to me.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Lisa, why don't you share with us one of your athlete village experiences? And I also want to hear about the cafeteria. I'm curious as based on how many different countries you've been to. So 6 times, right? And obviously the cuisine sort of follows the country that you're in or the city that you're in. Give us a little, no pun intended, a little bit of taste into that.
I really enjoyed, Christella, hearing your story about where you were with the different weight pieces because of seeing other athletes in the village. Yes, athletes that are cutting weight are typically not in the greatest mood. But so it was really cool to hear your story about that. The inside piece, right?
Exactly.
So the really neat thing about the village is that I think Christelle did a great job with that word, surrealistic. Like it really is. Like you don't know what to expect exactly, but when you get there, it's like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you're here with the best athletes from all different countries, all different disabilities. And everyone, like Christelle put it, laser focused on their goals. So you're with the best of the best. And that is an honor in itself. And it's really neat, the different pieces of the village. I am one of those people that tries to go out with some of my teammates and explore, figure out what's where. As Christella knows, there's different, like there's a residential zone, there's usually like an international zone that's got like stores and like hair salons and post office and kind of different things like that. So just sort of like learning your surroundings, learning where the cafeteria is. It's really fun. And also each village has its own, I'm trying to think of the word, like not decor is not the right word, but it has its own cultural kind of feel and look to it, So like Beijing had a lot of like streams running through and had bridges, a lot of high rises. London had a history of its own. That village was I think a toxic waste dump, if I'm not mistaken, that they transformed, cleaning the soil into this, I thought it was pretty beautiful, park kind of looking village. I felt like it was a park. I thought it was really kind of cool. And I think it was next to a mall, if I'm not mistaken. So for the shoppers in the group, right? The mall is important. It's just important to feel like you can also step away from the village. And that was our step away. But anyway, the feel of the village is really amazing. And something that I love to do, I'm not always very good at it, but I like to pin trade. And so part of like, it's like Christella mentioned, like being able to socialize and meet other people is really cool too. And so pin trading is a fun way to do it because pin, like the word pin is sort of like a universal word that you can walk up to somebody and hold a pin and be like, pin, and people will know that you want to trade. And it's hard for me because sometimes I'll go up to the same country like 5 or 6 times because I can't see what country they're from, so it's a little bit more challenging. And sometimes I get a lot of the same countries, but you meet other people who are doing other sports and other disciplines, disabilities, other countries, and you're not only trading pins, but sometimes you're trading stories. How did they get there, and what's their sport, what's their story, and that's really exciting, sometimes humbling, honestly, as well, to hear how some people maybe acquired their injury and how they got to the Paralympics. So that's a kind of a neat thing, is the pin trading, and you come back with not only pins, but sometimes like homemade bracelets or keychains or just little things that you can't buy, and it's personal from somebody. So it's really cool. And to caveat into Molly, what you said about the cafeteria, a lot of the pin trading, at least for me, happens in the cafeteria. because you can go table to table. Hopefully the country's not sitting all in an same area, but the cafeteria does have a lot of different cuisines. They do have a home country cuisine, but then they've expanded, and I don't remember all the different games, but I specifically remember London because I feel like I gained 15 pounds, honestly. Like, I thought the food in London was amazing, but they have like American like food options. They have like Asian food options. They'll have Middle Eastern food, vegan, vegetarian. They really have expanded to have very many different varieties to accommodate everybody's needs. And so they have everything from cuisines to side dishes to desserts. As Christella will tell you, desserts and other snacks. And as I said, I feel like they used to also have a McDonald's. That did not occur in Tokyo, but in some countries, McDonald's is a novelty. So McFlurries, I remember those from Rio. But the cafeteria is a great place for food options. And then, as I said, socialization, and again, pin trading. It's a hot place.
Great. I think this is true. That one of the things that athletes also love to do is to be able to give pins of their own country to volunteers as you're, being escorted or you're headed over to certain aspects. Christella, why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Oh, definitely. I kind of think of the pins in some ways kind of like currency, if you will. When I was in Rio, all the staff who were taking care of our rooms, I was running late, which is kind of a unfortunately typical thing for me. So I'm trying to grab everything, and of course forgot something. So I come back, and the ladies are cleaning up our little apartment, and so I just gave them all pins, and like, I'm just saying, my bed was made super cute every day. They put my little animals, my little neck pillows. It was adorable. But they also were very invested. And then I went to they do your laundry for you. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You come back and you're like, wait, I have to prepare my own food and wash my own clothes and clean for myself. I'm not used to this anymore, but it's so nice. But I do remember when I was going to turn in my laundry, they're like, do we have pins? And I was like, yes. And I'm pretty liberal with giving them out. And the next day I went back with another one of my teammates, and she was like, your stuff isn't going to be ready. Unfortunately, hers wasn't ready, but mine was. And I don't want to say it was the pins, but that's kind of fun.
Right. That's great. Well, I, am very well aware of the tradition. And when I go to visit our team at the Paralympic Training Center in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I always have pins. Well, I always have pins wherever I go. But I will tell you that one time when I checked into the hotel, a new person was working there, and I usually know everybody because I'm there a lot. And so I had given this new young person working there a pin. And then about 4 months ago, this was just recently, this person was still working there and had the pin on their lapel. And it just made my day that they're just so proud to, be a part of what's happening in, Fort Wayne with our goalball teams. And I think it's a great tradition and something that, it means a lot to both of you as athletes, right? Because that's like your pride, and you're representing, our country. And then on the other hand, you're just, providing some little unique thing to somebody to be able to say thank you. It's a very cool gesture.
For sure.
Yes, agreed.
Lisa, when you think about some of the memorable experiences you've had, at the games with your teammates, tell us one that really just stands out the most. And I know it's hard because, when we look at your medal count, those all probably, stand out. But is there one moment at one of the games that just really you want to share with everybody tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, yes, having multiple medals, all those moments are tremendous highlights. But I think the moment I'd like to share is at my first Paralympic Games in 2000 in Sydney, when I was walking into the stadium for opening ceremonies. I was walking around I was walking with our women's goalball team, a lot of veterans, Patty Eggensteiner, Jen Armbruster, Maggie Ostrowski. And then there was a couple of us youngins, Asia Miller, myself, and Bonnie. I can't remember Bonnie's last name, but we were the youngins. But the three of the veterans, they took the time to talk to us and say, just embrace this moment. You are walking to a stadium with, I don't know how many people were there, thousands of people, of course, right? And they just said, just embrace the moments of this. You are walking in as Team USA, and this crowd is going to go wild and cheer for you and cheer for Team USA. And it's like, I love the word surreal, because it really is a surreal moment when you take those steps onto the what is the track. And the crowd, they go crazy. They're so loud. And especially as a visually impaired or blind athlete, we're not getting a lot of visual feedback. I can't see the crowd. I can't see necessarily the people that are maybe dancing along the way, like the volunteers and people that are making the show, but I can hear the crowd, and that is one of the coolest feelings to be walking into opening ceremonies, your first opening ceremonies, Team USA apparel on, and just being like, wow, I am here. I am a Team USA athlete, and so that's one of my most memorable moments. And I like to pay it forward now whenever we go to the Paralympics and we have someone who's never, it's their first opening ceremonies, and kind of help them like really embrace that moment, because it is amazing.
That's neat. That's neat. I feel like I could feel that experience as you were describing it. Christella, one of our viewers has chimed in with a question. If you could relive, one of the games or one of the marches, which one would you choose?
That is a really difficult question, I think, because I agree with what Lisa said, that it's incredible, and it's such an honor. My father and one of my brothers were in the military, so honestly, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, all the holidays were a big deal in my household. So I was always very proud to be, from the USA. And so having the flag, representing the team, there's nothing like it. And our coach, Coach Moore, talked to us how there's nothing like that experience, and he was absolutely right. So I think I'm going to have to probably go with London, because you hear about something for so long and you're like, well, I mean, it sounds cool, but I really want to be a part of it. And then boom, you're there and you're living the experience. So it was absolutely incredible.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you both for just, sharing those experiences to help our audience, understand that if they are young and they're looking to get into a new sport, or they've been, working on a sport for a number of years, that, there's a lot to work towards. There's a lot of training that goes into this, but it's all worth it from that standpoint. Let's talk a little bit about training, because Christella, just so that I've done judo once. I've been in the dojo at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. Lisa knows I've played goalball twice, and I think that there's a lot of demand to maybe see me play it 3 times. Just when I visit the training center. But boy, both sports are really, really hard. Let's go to Lisa. Lisa, walk us through, what's the grind like?
The grind is is a dedication to want to be the best, right? It is the ongoing goal to honestly achieve perfection, right? And so the training grind, it is, same as I'm sure Christella will attest to, it's year round, like when you're just participating in a sport kind of recreationally, you can take those breaks, you have seasons and you have time off. But once you step into that, that higher level, that elite Paralympic level, you do have breaks. There are breaks incorporated, but they're usually kind of active breaks, so the grind is tough. It is a tough day-to-day where you're putting 110% into either your on the court activity or your off the court activity, where each time everything has to go into, all your focus, all your energy has to go into that specific activity, and then you're hopefully going to be able to achieve your ultimate goal. So I love the grind. I try to feed off the grind of goal ball. And we always talk about how we want the grind to be harder than an actual tournament. So you want to be so well trained on the court, off the court, mentally, physically, emotionally. You want to have done all that hard work that when you get to your tournament, your Paralympic games, your World Games, your Pan Am games, it's actually easier. You're actually, okay, I'm good, So just, embracing the grind and knowing it's worth it. It's worth that every bit of it, and if I'm having a tough day, because that they happen, you're going to have a bad practice or maybe a bad lift, strength and conditioning session, to know that I have a great team around me of national team players, residents, coaching staff, to say, it's okay. There's tomorrow, go get it tomorrow,
Well, and both of you, you're playing contact sports,
Yes.
right? And that's a lot. I don't think, a lot of people realize the intensity of how hard you can throw a goal ball and how fast it's coming at you, and that you're blocking it with your body. And, you could get injured from that standpoint. How do you balance the contact sport part, from a training standpoint? What are some of the things that you think through mentally to prepare for that?
I think in goal ball, just being really attuned to maximizing your movements, because it is a contact sport, completely agree. But being aware, I guess, of my movements and how to maximize my movements with the equipment I'm wearing to make things a little easier on my body. Being an older athlete sometimes has its challenges, but also recognizing that there are times when I need to make a decision to say, okay, my example, maybe my knee really hurts. And if I keep playing, I'm going to hurt not only myself, I'm going to hurt my team. And I need to step away. I need to step off the court, get some ice, and take the rest of that practice to recover, to be the best. Like, sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that, you're not sure how to make that decision, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think that is definitely a piece of it, and being mentally strong to basically go, it's okay. It's okay sometimes to say, I need to get some ice. I need to recover and focus on my body to be ready for the next thing, so I can help not only myself, but my team be successful.
Right. Well, great advice, right? And I'm sure it took a lot of years of experience, and in being a veteran athlete at the caliber that you're playing at, I think that's great for our young viewers to hear this evening. Christella, tell us a little bit about what training's like from your perspective. I don't know a lot about what goes into the judo training, so love to hear a little bit more about it.
So I definitely agree with Lisa, listening to your body, taking injuries seriously, and knowing when to push through something. If you're just tired, okay, like I can do these deadlifts, or just, like, hey, my shoulder's really hurting and I have this competition. Why don't I do something. It doesn't mean you don't do the workout. Maybe you do something different. So being able to be able to adapt to the situation and be smart about things is very important. And then I think that people often miss the part of, you can be as physically prepared as possible, but being emotionally and physically ready is also a huge part of it. During, when you get to any games, a Pan Am Championship, a World Championship, or, the big games, the Paralympic games, you can't train anymore. You've already learned what you're going to learn. You're going to be the athlete. So you just need to do everything to be ready. Because honestly, the day of competition, you have so many nerves. When I competed in Rio, I honestly told people beforehand, look, I will not be on social media a lot. I will probably post, but I won't respond, because I don't want to not respond to somebody. You have to focus so much on what you want, and having your family understand that is really important. And sometimes, it can be a little hard. You miss birthdays, you miss graduations, you sometimes when you're cutting weight, you miss Thanksgiving. I have never missed Thanksgiving.
I would say, Christella, you can't miss Thanksgiving.
No, it's my favorite holiday. But I mean, there are things, when friends are eating birthday cake and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna drink another glass of water, or different things like that. But and then just, having people behind you. Again, I feel, judo is definitely a more individual sport, but there are so many people who are on your team and who really do have you ready. One of my strength coaches that I met out here, in Sacramento, his name is Miguel, and he is one of the toughest strength coaches I've ever worked with, but he had me ready. As I mentioned, I was definitely small for 70 kilos, but definitely small for the open weight division. I was definitely minimum. The next competitor was 50 pounds heavier than me. So that's a lot of weight to give up. But Coach Miguel had me so strong that I wasn't out muscled by any of the athletes I fought against. And that took a lot of work. It was, he's like, okay, well, you can rest for 45 seconds, but resting meant that I might just be running around or doing something, not as active, not lifting, but it taught me to be able to control myself when I'm in that match, and when I have that break to be able to catch my breath. I was already prepared, and I was able to control my emotions, control my breathing, and control my heart rate, which allowed me to stay more focused on the match.
Great. Christella, what's been one of the biggest challenges you faced as an athlete, and how did you overcome that?
I definitely think that not this March, but the March before, my life kind of was like a country song. I was getting ready for Tokyo, and for each sport you have to earn points, and for athletes we have to earn our points. So I knew that I could get there, but then I found out that Priscilla, my prior guide, had a terminal cancer. And anybody who knew Priscilla, she was a little bougie, but she was a lot of fun. Great goal ball dog, just was fun and just a really good girl. But they become your family, and so having to make this choice, I know that I'm doing everything right, but I'm not going to be emotionally there. That was really hard. And when you're a judo athlete, the pinnacle of your sport is to compete in Tokyo. So not being able to do that, and knowing that, I willingly made that decision, but stepping away was actually pretty tough. And then, I've just had a lot of life stuff kind of come at me, but I think that what's good about judo is, again, that community, the people who are on your team and who are beside you. Maybe when you don't have the most confidence or don't believe in yourself, there's always that person pushing you, who maybe another athlete who's not even in the Paralympic level is like, hey, can you come and train with me? I'm getting ready to test. And that as your job as an athlete is to give back to them. But then for me, when I step back on the mat, I'm like, okay, let's go, let's train. I kind of have one speed, and it's not just casual judo. So I think just, being able to let yourself heal in any way that you need to, but ultimately come back to your sport is really important.
That's great. That's great. Lisa, you sort of touched on this a little bit before. You commented earlier about, goalball and the people that you've surrounded yourself with has made you the person, that you are today. Go a little bit further and tell us how you've changed as a person in a little bit more detail during this Paralympic journey.
Yeah, wow, yeah, it's been such a journey, and yes, some of it has to do with disability. So it took me a while to get involved with goalball because although I have a visual condition I was born with, I had a hard time associating myself as a visually impaired person, as a blind person growing up. And so it took a lot of persuasion from some great people in New Jersey to just get me out to even try goalball. And again, a lot of it had to do with my own adjustment to my vision loss, adjustment to blindness. I was not comfortable with who I was and as a blind person, and I was only comfortable trying to fit into a sighted setting. And so when I finally went to my first goalball practice, that was the beginning of the transformation, because I believe this is a lifelong journey of adjustment to blindness, where I finally had my eyes open to the community of blind and visually impaired people, and like what I could do, what I couldn't do. I mean, I was 15 years old, so I don't remember what I wanted to grow up to be, honestly. But when I met some of the different people that were playing goalball in the state of New Jersey, and then as I started to go to regional tournaments, as Christella knows, a lot of people go, are there. It changed me because it gave me a lot of confidence to be okay with who I was, to be okay saying, I can't see that, or I can't see that, but how do you do it? How do you see something that's far away, or what's your method to do something? And so it was really critical. And I think it was a really critical part of my life where so many people helped me become comfortable with being who I was, with having a visual impairment. And at the time, if you had said to me, Lisa, you're probably going to go blind at some point in your life, I probably would have lost it. I probably wouldn't have been able to handle it, honestly. But as I've been immersed into our blind community and culture, and I do have a progressive condition, it doesn't faze me. I'm like, I'm at the point where I'm like, it's okay. I can, when I lose all my vision, it will be okay. It's not the end of the world. It will change my world. But like Christella mentioned, being able to adapt is really important. So part of my growth is the confidence of being okay with who I was as a blind person. And then as I have obtained that confidence, helping other people find that confidence as well, that it's okay to say you can't see something, but let's talk about how we can adapt and make it work. Losing your vision isn't the end of the world. It's most times, honestly, the beginning of your world, the beginning of new opportunity and new friendships, relationships, and new communities. So that was probably the biggest part of my change, of my transformation, honestly. And then being an elite level athlete, honestly, the second part was just learning the work ethic, as we just talked about training and sacrifice. Christella touched on really sacrifice a lot in training, but taking that work ethic from sport and then bringing it over to like my professional career, and making sure people know that, yes, I'm a goalball athlete, but I'm also a professional. I'm going to give you 110%.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was really just beautiful. And I think that, as people listen to what you just said and kind of, take that in, especially if they're younger and most recently, are going through something similar. I think you really shared with how you approach it and how you can really think through it, and also how important it is to have people surrounded by you, and to create those relationships. So that's great. Really, that's so powerful. Christella, I think one of the things that I'd love to hear from your perspective is, what advice do you have for athletes who want to follow in your footsteps? Because you're both a Paralympian and you're entrepreneurial, right? You're doing a lot of different things, and you're not a casual judo person.
Right. So I definitely think that being able to be as independent as possible. So I'm a little different from Lisa in the regards that I couldn't like not be blind. I'm blind, and so having to just come to terms with that. It's not just, people have this idea that since I was born blind that it's easier for me because I've already lived through it, and it's what I know. But there's definitely been times where it's been hard. I'm not going to say that I haven't had my pity parties, but again, like as Lisa said, some of the coolest experiences I've had have become because of my blindness, and I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to play various sports, and it's really cool because those experiences, you bring into your professional life. So I definitely would say that if you do have, if you're in school and you need to advocate for yourself as far as getting accommodations that you need, don't let the first no dissuade you from taking that math class or that art class or the dance class. Find a way to make it work. And it's kind of an interesting, one of my memories, and it's something that I heard before the Rio Games, before we competed, but it's something that the story I take into my life. So I believe I was going to compete the next day, and Coach Liddy had all of the athletes, all the judo athletes, and he was talking to us, and he said, everybody who is at these games believes that they should win a medal. They should be on the podium. Their country should be represented. And so you need to compete for the entirety of your match. Don't give up on yourself. Don't let the referees make calls for you. You have a decisive win, and make sure that you are the one who is awarded the win at the end of your match. And if you get into trouble, you fight through it, because there's no other day than tomorrow. So just leave everything out there on the mat, and however things end up, you walk away feeling good about yourself. And he was also really good. Anytime he talked to me, it wasn't Chris or Christella, it was, hey champ. And so just having that mindset. So I think, from that experience, I learned to translate that into, if something's not accessible, finding a workaround. If sometimes you may need someone to help you with something, but it doesn't mean you can't accomplish your task. So just really believe in yourself, find ways to make things happen. I always like to think about, I want to turn my biggest weakness into a strength. So when I competed in the open weight division, I was the small athlete, and being a totally blind athlete, sometimes there are advantages to having more vision. But I just said that I wanted my weaknesses to become my strengths. So the fact that I was a smaller athlete, I knew that I had to be very strong, have very good technique, and just be very fast, so that I didn't have to deal with, the momentum of my opponent using their weight against me. And I really just try to take that mindset into everything else that I do, so that I can be successful in all the millions of things that I try to put on my plate.
That's great. That's great. I thought I'd, as we come to a close here, would just give you each an opportunity maybe to ask each other a question from that standpoint. You both know each other really well from that standpoint, haven't seen each other in a while. Lisa, do you want to go first? Any questions for Christella?
Yes, sure. All right, Christella, what is what's your biggest life lesson from your Paralympic journey?
That you have to be mentally prepared for any situation. So when in Brazil, they take judo very seriously, and they take their Paralympic athletes very seriously. So I fought the Brazilian for bronze, and when I was getting ready to compete and we were walking out, this whole crowd erupts and says Brazil, and you know how that feeling is when they get going. It's very loud, and I knew that I had to be mentally ready, so I just pretended that my name was Brazil and that everybody was cheering for me, and I gave myself confidence to go out there and
that is great. That is great.
Yeah, sometimes when I have, if I ever get to do if I ever get to speak, I actually sometimes will have the crowd chant USA so I can at least know what it sounds like, because I wasn't the experience. But yeah, for about 2 minutes, my name was Brazil and the whole country was cheering for me.
That's
Absolutely.
Great. Oh, I love that.
And I hear that, like when we were in Brazil, for the Rio Games, oh my goodness. Like, it was rowdy. And of course they're so prepped, I feel like, for like soccer. Exactly. That when they were in the venues, like, wow, I mean, the intensity, the energy was amazing.
Yeah.
And so I love your story.
I remember people were telling me afterwards that people in the crowd had the athlete that I was competing. They had t-shirts with her face on there. Like, she was like their icon. So, no pressure, but I learned like it didn't matter. I had so much belief in myself. My mom told me she actually watched me compete, and she was like, I knew with that little smirk on your face that you were going to win. And I was like, cool, because I wasn't sure about it, but I knew that I got to compete at the highest athletic stage of my life, and win, lose or draw, everybody had to watch me. And fortunately, it was a win.
Well, Christella, you've got the last question here to Lisa.
Okay, Lisa. So you are obviously a super talented goalball athlete, and I think just a tremendous player, and do so much. I think you're a great team player, have represented Team USA in so many ways as an ambassador. But I know you are a mom. And so how do you kind of work things out with Jay when you are going to be gone for a while and he's going to miss you? How do you get him to be comfortable with that?
Oh, that's a great question, Christella. And I'm not sure if you know, but I'm actually expecting the number 2.
I didn't want to send that out.
No, it's soon. We're very close.
Very soon. Here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That is actually one of the hardest things to kind of not, I'm trying to think the right word, but just to be a mom and an athlete, and leaving your child or children at times is honestly one of the most heart-wrenching things in the world. And it's I have to take a step back and try to kind of try to compartmentalize it a little bit, because if I didn't, I would never leave. And before we went to Tokyo, now by the time we went to Tokyo, Jay was, oh my goodness, it's only a year ago, right? He was 7. So he had complete understanding that, and it is hard because it's not just me leaving, it's his dad too. Jake is leaving. So both of us are leaving. Grandma is here. And by 7, he knew that we were going to compete. We had watched the Olympics, and we prepped him. And of course, as you know, Christella, we try to bring him to regional tournaments. So he's involved with what we do. And he's becoming a really big helper. He's goal judging a little bit more. So he knows what we do and everything. But we did get the extra year delay for Tokyo. So it kind of threw things off. But anyway, it was really hard. We left very early in the morning to go to Tokyo, Fort Wayne to Chicago to Tokyo. And so I believe we were leaving the house, I don't remember, 3 or 4 in the morning a.m., somewhere in that area. And Jay was already in school. In the Midwest, they start school pretty early in August. And I said to Jay, I was like, okay, buddy, night before, don't get up. Okay. You have school, you know, I'll come in, I'll give you a quick hug and a kiss, and then, you know, we'll FaceTime. Thank goodness for FaceTime. And so, as soon as I got up early, I got in the shower and I came out of the shower and was dressed, and he's standing right there, you know, at whatever early time it was. And he's like, you're leaving. I'm like, we're leaving soon. And he lost it. You know, he was just so emotional. And of course I'm emotional, you know, but, I got my mom up, my grandma, and I was like, okay, all right, we got a family effort here. Okay. It's like, all right, Jay, it's okay to cry. We're both going to cry, but we're going to see you soon. You know, we're going to go, we're going to represent Team USA. And he's very proud of that. And I said, you know, we're going to see each other. We're going to FaceTime once a day at least, and we will see each other again. Thank goodness for that. You know, the ability for technology to come in handy, you know, but it was one of the hardest things for me to do, to walk out our front door, you know, on that day to go to Tokyo, because I knew I was leaving my little boy, who's not so little anymore, but, you know, just emotionally as a mom, you know, I'm like, I'm leaving my child and he's sad, you know, but I did it. Jake and I did it. We walked out the door and we drove to Turnstone. And by the time we went to Turnstone, my mom had sent me a text message and said, he's doing great. He's back sleeping again, you know, and it just, it let me take a deep breath, because, you know, he's very important to both Jake and I, you know, he's our son. So it's hard to like, that's the hard part about being a mom. But the really awesome part about being a mom is that having our son involved with so many pieces of goalball, like I said, you know, from helping out at practices to goal judging. He was goal judging at nationals in July, and seeing him grow up, and then also seeing him find his own athletic activities, you know, like going and supporting him. He plays soccer, and just going and supporting him and letting him know, like, we're here to support his dreams too. He's supporting our dreams, and then we're there to support his dreams.
So that's great. That's great. Well, ladies, we're going to conclude here. I just want to say thank you. I have really enjoyed hearing about your experiences and getting a chance to know each of you a little bit better. And thank you for all you do, and that you're going to continue to do for athletes across the country as you share your experiences. I just want to close with one of the things that we do as part of National Blind Sports Week and Month is that we have our annual Breakfast with Champions presented by Anthem coming up on October 28th. And it is a virtual and in-person event, and you can find out more details on usaba.org. And we'd love to have you join us for a lot of celebration, and a lot of great things have gone on this year for the United States Association of Blind Athletes. And let's give it up for Lisa and Christella. What great stories tonight. I really, really enjoyed being with you. And Lisa, good luck to you. We know that there's a lot going on over the next couple weeks for you. And Christella, as you start your new business on your birthday, good luck, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good night, ladies.
Thanks so much, Molly. Thanks, Christella.
Thanks.
Alt F4. Zoom. This meeting is being live streamed. I stay in this meeting. You can close button. This meeting is being lived. I stay in this. Got it button. Space. Zoom meeting. Meeting recording to stop. Alt F4. Leave meeting button. Lisa has left the meeting.